Welcome to Recipes Recommended. Today our recommendation, Ricotta Gnocchi, comes to us from my desire to use up some extra ingredients in my fridge and to practice some techniques which I was neglecting. This delicious recipe is a mashup of several recipes which use ricotta cheese instead of potato, which is the universal standard. This recipe is so great because if you know how to make potato gnocchi, this one is even easier and also really forgiving. We hope you enjoy it. The backbone of a lot of Italian recipes, providing a little fat and saltiness, is cheese. Here we start by grating about a half a cup of Parmesan before gathering the rest of the mise en place. I rely heavily on my microplane for tasks like this. If you're still a novice home cook, this is one tool I highly recommend investing in. You'll use it all the time. Like I said, this is really close to potato gnocchi, which are pasta-like dumplings made with potato and flour primarily. Historically, you'll find dumpling recipes in almost every culture around the world. It's super fascinating if you ever want to dive into reading about how cooking and farming has evolved over the years. Just like making a lot of other doughs, you'll want to mix all of your main ingredients together before integrating the flour. This recipe for 4, but let's face it realistically feeds 2, adds 1 cup of ricotta, 1 egg, a big pinch of salt and ground pepper to the half cup of grated Parmesan cheese. Because you're only adding 1 ingredient, it's much easier to slowly add the 1 cup of flour to a wet mixture, making sure you get the right consistency. You can always add more until it's just right. Keep in mind that you'll also be adding flour to your cutting board, which will also be absorbed by the dough. Once your dough is kind of crumbly, you're done. You can form it into a ball while it's in the bowl, or you can just dump it straight onto your floured cutting board or workbench. Sprinkle a small handful of flour onto your work surface and spread it out, making sure your hands are also floured. This will keep your hands from sticking to the dough. After dumping the dough onto the work surface, gently work it into a ball. Try to avoid overworking. You don't want to make the dough too dense or it'll have a chewy texture. Once you have a cohesive ball of dough, divide it into quarters and one by one, take each quarter and roll it into a log about a foot long and maybe an inch thick. I then use a bench scraper here to cut the log into equal pieces, which end up looking like little pillows. I'm lucky enough to own a gnocchi paddle. If you plan on making gnocchi more than a couple of times in your life, you'll definitely benefit from owning one too. It's a little paddle which has ridges to aid in forming the gnocchi dumplings. All you do is roll one of those little pillows into a ball, and then, with a little pressure, roll down the side of the gnocchi paddle. Otherwise, you can also use the tines of a fork, but I'll be honest, it's super hard despite what you may have heard, and for those who are good at it, let me know your secret, because I stink at it. Just like fresh pasta, gnocchi only takes a couple minutes to cook. Salt your pot of water and turn your burner to high. Once at a rolling boil, add the gnocchi and cook for a couple of minutes right until they start to float. You can then add them to whatever sauce you've prepared. With the water for the gnocchi heating off to the side, but before the gnocchi is cooked, we can now start on the sauce we choose to serve with them. Lisa and I chose to have some fried sage and brown butter. If you haven't had it before, I recommend that you choose this instead of some heavy Alfredo sauce from a jar. Besides it being delicious, it's easy to make and employs making brown butter, another skill you should master if your aim is to become better versed in the kitchen. Like I said, brown butter is easy, but it's also easy to mess up. You can't take your eye off it or it will 100% burn on you and you'll have to start over. First, take a stick of unsalted butter, cube it, and add it to a pan with about 6 to 7 good-sized sage leaves. Set the burner to medium heat, and once the butter is melted, let it go. After a few patient minutes, the butter will start to smell nutty and quickly go from golden to a light chocolatey brown. Take the pan off the heat and you're ready to add the sauce to your gnocchi. If you're using a large enough pan, just toss the gnocchi directly in the same pan, otherwise use a bowl like I did. I don't know why I didn't try this sooner. It's not like I hadn't heard of it before. There are just some things in life you always just file under. I'll get to it eventually. Well, if that's the case for you also, here's your sign to make this recipe. It's as easy can be, and I actually think it's better than classic potato gnocchi. It's light and fluffy and nowhere near as heavy as pasta dishes can be. So stop hesitating like me and try it out. You'll be glad you did. If you enjoyed this video, please consider hitting the like button, commenting, and subscribing. Also, you can find the full recipe on our website, recipesrecommended.com. If you have a recipe you think that we should make, send us a message and we'll check it out. We may also make a video. Thanks for watching, and please don't forget, great minds eat alike.